Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being with us. Today I have Laz Ayala. Laz Ayala is the producer of Illegal, the film, and the founder of Illegal, the project. Laz Ayala, welcome aboard Politics Done Right.
Thank you for having me with you.
Look, let me first of all say that as an immigrant myself, one from Central America, I understand all that has been going on in the country. I understand all the permutations thereof. And it's great to see that somebody decided to encapsulate this in a film and in a project. I know there are others doing it, but the way you're doing it, I think fusing them together is just excellent. So why don't you first tell me a little bit about this project, and then we'll go into the realities of what's going on with the fires on the West Coast, etc.
Sure. Well, first of all, like you, I'm also an immigrant from Central America. I came here from El Salvador back in 1981, fleeing from a civil war that devastated my native country. I was 14 years old, came here in 1981, went through the experiences that many, if not every immigrant, in particular, every undocumented immigrant goes through. I came here undocumented at that time. And that was almost 40 years ago. And I have to say that in the 40 years that I have lived in this country, I have very, very few times paused to think about or to feel attacked or to feel denigrated at the degree that I feel immigrants are today criminalized and dehumanized. And so when this narrative started with, our candidate, then candidate Trump 7 years ago, of referring to immigrants as criminals and drug dealers and tax cheats and essentially rapists and murderers and less than humans, essentially, I felt like my own dignity and my own humanity was under attack, and of course that of other immigrants that have come here the same way that I did. And I waited for years for someone, for an organization, for an individual, leaders in the country to come up and give a voice to our story. Frankly, after waiting for years and not seeing much happening on that end at a national level, in the national conversation, I decided to, and it was not an easy decision, let me be clear, to do, because of the potential repercussions that could involve. But I came to terms with the fact that I needed to do something, needed to speak up, and so I did. And I started speaking at Rotary clubs here in Southern Oregon, where I live today. And of course, that led to writing some op-eds that were published in the local newspapers. And that really empowered me. And of course, I got a lot of support from the community, from the Rotary clubs and the community at large. And the message that I was sharing with them was very well received, and I felt it was timely. So getting that kind of support from the community empowered me to think of ways to make a bigger impact. And the way that I, at that time, decided that I could have that impact was to write a book about my story, but not just my story, but also featuring the overarching story of immigration, particularly undocumented immigration, in terms of the story, the myths and facts, and the real issue, the underlying issue behind all of this. And so I began that process of writing this book. And as I was completing the book, I met a local filmmaker, and we decided to then turn this book into a film. Essentially, we had the script for the film at the time. And so we took that and we put a team together of individuals, and we embarked on the production of a 78-minute feature film, Illegal, which is now being featured at film festivals all over the country. This week has been featured at the Klamath Falls Independent Film Festival. But we have been accepted to a number of film festivals: Richmond, Virginia, Beverly Hills Film Festival, Burbank Film Festival, Las Vegas. There's a whole list of them. And your audience can, of course, find out about those screenings taking place today on our website, illegaltheproject.org. So that effort of the book, the film, has now turned into essentially a movement, and we have had opportunities like the one that you are giving us today to talk about the issue, to talk about the topic from our perspective, the perspective of an immigrant like myself, perhaps like you and others, and to engage the national public in this conversation telling our story, our perspective, and also pushing for common sense legislation that we hope will address the issue of illegal immigration today.
Now, what's important is that you have that lived experience. I think what you're telling me is that you came in from a, first of all, is illegal about your story, or did you use your story in composite with other people's story to create this narrative?
Yes, it's a composite of stories in the film and in the book.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I like then is that it is told from a perspective of somebody who actually lived it. And I think that is very important there. My immigrant story would be different than your immigrant story in that I came over on a student visa. And after I got a student visa, I got sponsored and so forth. You came here in dire straits with your life. I remember flying into El Salvador when at the airport, there were gunners at the airport. That's what I flew into El Salvador back early in the 80s. Okay, so I understand the plight of the Salvadorians that are coming over to the United States, something that very few people understand or realize that it could be their reality. But anyhow, so in telling your story, in telling people what this was all about, did you feel that you had a captive audience not related to, let's say, the immigrant? In other words, is this done in a manner that you will make aware to many others this plight and why they should be interested in this plight?
Well, you know, my focus from the very beginning has been the mainstream public. The mainstream public. In other words, leaders, business people, and really the mainstream public, meaning our Caucasian communities and our Caucasian friends. Because at the end of the day, if we don't engage them, if we don't educate them, if we don't lead in those communities, they're expecting us to take this leadership. They're expecting us to lead in this conversation because only us understand this, what it is firsthand, and only we can speak about it in a way that tells the story. Mm-hmm. And it's for us to lead in this conversation. So yes, my focus was on the mainstream public, and really keeping it also apolitical. That was
my other question, because I mean, you're in a political show, right? And you said that this particular subject, and that's probably best if it can be done in and I don't necessarily say apolitical, but in a neutral manner, because everything is political actually,
right?
In a manner that isn't maybe party based, but more like exactly. You said, humanization. So continue, please.
So in the book and in the film, I mean, we don't go after any particular politicians. We really try to be pragmatic and objective in presenting the facts and also proposing solutions to address the problem. And the issue, that I see is that you hear politicians and you hear people in the mainstream community even wanting to help folks who are affected by this conversation and by the mistreatment of our government, in some cases, of immigrants. But nothing really is talked about, or not much is said about the underlying issue, the root of the problem. Why is it that we have illegal immigration in the first place? Well, let's talk about that. Why is it that we have this system of illegal employment that has for decades, right? I can say the last 6 decades, the last 60 years, has been attracting a workforce of undocumented workers who have no rights, who have no vote, who have no voice, who are taxed, who are then dehumanized, marginalized, exploited, to the degree that I compare the system to modern day slavery. Why is it that conversation has not been taking place? And that is the focus of my conversation. So I ask that question. I say, well, here is why. And I propose and I present my perspective as to the reasons why the system exists. And it exists by design. It doesn't exist by coincidence, let's be honest. The laws have been written in a way that it attracts people from third world countries to come out here and just give their sweat and give their lives for meager wages where they have really very little to no opportunity to move up, and where they are today, even mistreated as if they are less than humans. This problem is not there by coincidence. It's there by design and the design of our own government. This is an institutionalized problem. Now, first, let's understand that. Let's understand that we cannot blame the immigrants who come here seeking illegal employment, because our system is designed to allow for illegal employment to occur. So they come here because they know that there's a black market for labor, for illegal labor. Now, if we want to address the issue of illegal immigration and illegal employment, we need to be talking about enforcing the laws or changing the laws so that we prevent illegal employment. And then if we conclude that we need this foreign labor to support our industries such as agriculture, construction, hospitality, which, by the way, immigrants are the backbone of those industries. And if we agree that we need that labor, support these industries and our economy, then let's create then a legal and humane path to allow these families to come here. Not necessarily to settle, because as you probably know, and as I know, not everyone wants to settle here. And in fact, a great majority of the undocumented working population who risk their lives getting here don't want to settle here. They're coming here to work, to make some money. They don't want to be separated from their families abroad, and in many cases we are, for years, sometimes decades, right? And still living in the shadows without the possibility for one day
repatriating,
integrated into the mainstream
right.
community, or much less be able to return to our communities without risking not ever being able to come back. So we have the system that separates families abroad, and once we get here and we start to establish ourselves, then ICE comes and separates us from our families here, and we're always fleeing, and we're in this constant state of
Flux.
flight.
Yeah. Now, let me tell you, Laz, first of all, I must disagree with you strongly that you're making something apolitical, because my brother, your statement was such a strong, well-delivered political statement. It may not be partisan, but it is sure political, and it's a very important political message. So I want to thank you for that. Now, here's the interesting thing, because you made a very important point that I want to sort of elaborate on and actually make it a bit, put it out there again. And that is, the system was designed for the way things are running today, because otherwise there would be punitive penalties on employers who employ these undocumented workers. And if there is no demand, there would be no supply trying to reach that demand. That is the first thing. It's a con. It has always been a con on the average American citizen, and the immigrant has always been used as a tool. We hate them when we need to hate them. We bang them when we need to bang them, and we try to get rid of them, like even Roosevelt did when we need to get rid of them. Right. So, I mean, that has always been the status of this country. And I think documentaries like yours telling the truth is essential, so that Americans in general, because while I love what you said in the beginning, you're trying to enlighten, you're trying to instruct, inform the masses. That's what's necessary, because this information isn't for the masses. The masses are have so much bad information. They're so misinformed with the true immigrant scenario. They don't really get it. They don't understand that immigrants are the backbone of this country. Just like slavery is what enriched this country, immigrants played their part in enriching this country as well. And so, I mean, I am thankful for that book. And I think you gave a good preamble. I'll put all the information about your book in the blog. Now, is there anything else you want to say about your project before I ask you a few questions about what's occurring on the West Coast right now?
Well, about the project, so our goal is not just to humanize the conversation and to educate, right? Which, by the way,
Laz, I want to you know, I mean, you're the guest, but there's one thing that I always try to do in my thing, because you're a human being, I'm a human being, and everybody else are a human being. What I don't sometimes I get into trouble by saying I don't like the word. I am trying to humanize you. I can't humanize that which is already human. Okay,
Well,
trying to make others realize that we're just as human as they are.
right. I'm trying to humanize the conversation because the
Okay,
conversation has been dehumanized,
okay, that accepted.
right? The conversation has been dehumanized. In other words, we have removed the human element out of the
Right.
conversation. At least the mainstream conversation
Got
has.
it. Got it.
Got it.
Got it.
Okay. So besides that, we are also proposing what I believe are sensible solutions to the problem. The problem, if you want to call that a problem, of illegal immigration or illegal employment, again, is there because it has been designed that way. Now, if we want to fix it, and I believe that we need to fix it, because not only is it the humane thing to do, is it the right thing to do for the workers and for the employers and for the economy and for our democracy and for the country. Not only is it the right thing to do morally and in every other sense of the word, it is actually what many employers want. They want a reliable workforce that is not subject to raids and arrests and deportation that will disrupt their businesses, number one. The worker wants the same. The worker wants an opportunity that is humane and legal to come here, work for a season, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, whatever the case might be, return to their communities, take their hard-earned dollars, reinvest those dollars in their communities, reunite with their families, build businesses there, and create and promote economic sustainability in those communities, which in the long term would help with the economic crisis that many communities and countries live. If we're not stealing their human capital and we're relying for their human capital to return with money, with investment, that is long-term economic sustainability. And that is what people really want. So what I'm advocating for is for an expansion and a overhauling of our current guest worker program to allow more visas, guest worker visas, for the industries that depend on foreign labor, so that these individuals can come here in a legal and humane way and be allowed to return to their communities. It's that simple. But in tandem with that, we are also advocating for the enforcement of E-Verify and immigration laws with the employers, so that we can then eliminate the demand for illegal labor, create a demand for legal labor, guest workers with visas who come here, work humanely, legally, return to their families, remain united with their families in their native communities. That's the solution. And it's a solution that will not cost even close to a fraction of the $8 billion that we currently spend on immigration enforcement. Most of that money, by the way, goes towards private detention facilities where detainees are held at the cost of $120 per day, where they are treated like as a commodity, where these facilities have no incentive to release people, and where people are held for months and sometimes years because these institutions have no incentive to release them.
No, they make
They
money
are
from them.
profiting.
Yeah.
Exactly. And currently we're spending $8 billion a year on enforcement. We can solve this by revamping our guest worker program and having tough enforcement with the employers that would result in a legal path for people to come here to work and humane path to solve the situation at a fraction of the cost that we're spending today, without building a $20 billion wall, which in my opinion will do nothing to address the issue in the end.
No, it's the wall is there to really make some money for a few contractors. But Laz, how do you intend to effectuate that? Are you working with politicians, I imagine, to try to write legislation? What are you doing?
So the first step is to create public awareness and engagement, and we're doing that through the film and through the book and through conversations like the one that you and I are having right now, and reaching the public nationwide. Once we build that engagement, public engagement, we can then be more powerful as a group that gets behind this idea, behind this solution. And by having all of us reach out to our legislators, I and our group here in Southern Oregon, we have met with our senators, we have met with our legislators. We are starting to have those conversations, but it's going to take pressure from the general public, the mainstream public nationwide, to appeal to our legislators to bring this concept to the table, this idea to the table, and why are we not talking about this and find some real solutions? Because in my mind, both parties, both major parties, have done nothing but blow smoke up people's ears, let's say. And the reality is that it's all lip service and there are no solutions. And frankly, I am frustrated, as you can tell by the tone of my voice, because neither party right now, neither presidential candidate has put forth a real immigration reform solution. If you read through what's on their website, it's nothing but lip service. There's nothing specific that addresses the problem. What I'm proposing is very specific and is very detailed, and we have a 22-page white paper plan that lays out the issue, the problem, and the solution.
Well, Laz,
So
I mean, I think what you're doing is exactly what needs to be done. Politicians are not leaders, and that when we realize that then, you know, we're more effective. They go wherever the wind is blowing, and if the wind is blowing through what we're doing, see how quickly they jump on the bandwagon. Okay, Laz, well, look, we're on the blog post for this particular edition of Politics Done Right. We'll include all the information as far as how people can find your book, how people can find your film, etc., etc. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in Oregon. I don't see you with a gas mask on. Are you close to where the fires are, or?
fire, the most devastating fire started just about a half a mile from my house, from where I'm at right now.
Wow.
And
And
I thought this time last week, I really thought that I was going to lose my house and that our entire city was going to just be devastated by the fire. We were lucky here where I live in Ashland, Oregon, but our neighboring cities to the north, adjacent cities, were not as fortunate. And we have lost here in our larger community over 2,400 homes
oh,
in
wait,
these
wait, 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 wait,
fires.
wait, wait. 2,400 homes just in
Yes.
your section of Oregon?
Yep. Just right here in Jackson County where I live.
Wow. I didn't realize it was, I knew it was bad. I didn't realize. Now, who lives in these homes? Are a lot of the immigrant community, etc.?
So we have lost entire communities. There was a 55 and older, two 55 and older communities. One was a conventional stick-built community homes. There was like 70 homes in there that all of them were wiped out. In fact, there were two of those. And then there was a couple of other mobile home communities, retirees, and some that were housing a lot of just blue collar workers, working
Right.
class people, families that lost their homes and lost all of their belongings. We have people here in Jackson County right now living in tents, in parking lots at Walmart, at the fairgrounds, in hotels, and so the community has come together to provide support for these families. And so that's what I've been working on, which is why you see me here in this hat and kind of casual and still haven't shaved. But there's just a very community-wide effort to provide the basic essentials, food, water, shelter to people, the immediate need, and then also to be thinking about how to rebuild. We're talking now about rebuilding and finding more long-term solutions for these families before winter gets here in a couple of months.
Now, do you have any reputable links, websites that we can send people to?
Definitely. So KOBI Channel 5, one of our TV stations here locally, on their website, they have a list of all the different organizations, reputable organizations that are raising funds for the relief of the damage by fire. People can go there. United Way has been a fantastic organization here in Jackson County, really supporting the need, and like them, there's a number of other organizations, local, nationwide. The Red Cross has been very involved. So people can make donations to these organizations. They can go to KOBI Channel 5, get the list of organizations that are raising money for different areas of relief for the families. And so I would encourage them to go there. If they can, of course, provide funding, make donations, they can get that information there.
Laz Ayala, producer of Illegal, the film and founder of Illegal the Project. It was my pleasure to have you on board Politics Done Right. Thank you for what you're doing. It is very important work as an immigrant to another immigrant. Again, I think it's something that needs to get done.
Solutions come from the bottom up, not top down. And it's going to require all of us to engage and to demand common sense solutions. Solutions will not come to us otherwise. We have to lead. As President Obama once said, we are the change we seek.
Thank you.
All right, good day.
I'm Egberto Willies, host of Politics Done Right, an independent news program. I post several news videos of interest every day. I ask you so kindly to subscribe to my channel, and please leave me some comments. Thank you very much.